Bill is going to present on spinners and other numismatic collectibles. So at this time, I'd like to invite Al to come forward and start his presentation.
I'm not good at the microphone, so we'll see how this goes. Does everybody hear me okay? No. Okay. Who said no? Move closer. Because I can change you better than me, so. Anyway, I'm trying to.
Okay, well, let's move the chair so you can get closer.
Is that better? Yeah. Okay. People ask me if I'm a coin collector, and I always reply, no, I do not collect coins. I collect things that look like coins that are not coins. And coins, in my definition, are coins that are promoted or sponsored by the realm, the government of the day, and are redeemable by the government. The proper name for that is exunomia. However, that's far too fancy a term for me. I prefer the term back of the book. When I go to a dealer, I say, do you have any back of the book? Most dealers, when they see me coming, they already start saying, no, I don't, because I bug them every show. But back of the book comes from my days as stamp collecting. In the stamp catalog, all the regular issues are issued in the front. All of the varieties, such as overprints, special use stamps like special delivery, airmail, whatever, are all in the back of the book. So I always refer to my collections as back of the book. So when I ask them if they have any of the back of the book stuff, I am in effect asking them if they have any non-decimal, non-precious metal material. That's not saying I don't collect precious metal material, but I don't collect it because it's precious metal. I collect it because it happens to fit my definitions and happens to be made out of gold. And I have one or two gold pieces here today that I don't have because they're gold, but because they only exist in gold. And so, and a few silver pieces as well. I think almost everybody in this room has heard me talk about my primary collections, which are wooden nickels and merchant tokens. So I'm not going to talk about them today. I'm only going to talk about several of my other collections. Bear in mind when I talk about these collections, the material I have brought down today is just a small sample of each of these collections. In all likelihood, for every topic I talk about tonight, I have at least one or more binder of similar items at home. So it's difficult for me to bring them all down. That's why I've only brought a few of each type. The first item I'm going to be talking about is what's shown on the screen right now. It's called spinners. And what spinners are is on one side, it has the advertising for the company that issued them. The other side says, you pay. And they're made out of, most of them are out of aluminum, although there are some brass and some other materials. And what they were made for is when you went to a bar, 3 or 4 people would sit together and they'd take and they'd spin the spinner. And wherever the arrow pointed, he got the honor of buying drinks for everybody at the table. And so I collect advertising ones. The ones I'm showing are all Alberta, although I do collect Canada-wide. The first one you see on the screen is Calgary Bluebird Taxi, and it has AV, AM phone numbers, which means that it's probably in the late 50s, mid-60s, possibly early 70s. Let's see if I can get this one here. Fish and Chips from Edmonton. It took us a fair while to identify where that one was from, because it does not say Edmonton on there, but the address, for anybody that's ever lived in Edmonton, will recognize that as an Edmonton address.
You see the other side?
Show the other side.
They're all the same.
Yeah, we haven't seen.
You pay. And as you notice, I made sure they pointed at you guys. You guys are all paying.
Pointing at you right now.
Too late. By the way, I won't show the reverse because they're identical. They may be slight variances, but they all have the same thing. You know, you lose. This is one that I picked up at the last show. And I'm sure that now it's slightly different on the back. It has a different arrow, but it's still the same thing. You pay.
It's broken, it's upside down.
Is it? Okay. I was pointing it in the right direction, of course. And this one is, no, I can't remember which way I put it. Is it that way? Yeah, Western Aluminum Products from Forest Lawn. And because the company, or I assume it's because the company dealt in aluminum products, this spinner is probably a fraction thicker than all the other spinners. Because, and I suspect it's because the company had a vast quantity of aluminum to avail themselves of.
So would they pay to be on these, or how would it work?
They would buy them. You buy calendars or blotters or any other advertising gimmick.
I mean, the company who's put on there, would they pay for advertising?
They put their own on. Like I would go to you and order 500.
Yeah.
If you're the manufacturer, I'd order 500 of them and I'd give them out in my store.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then I would probably give them to preferred customers. Very much the same as back in the early days of tractors. If your dad bought a tractor, the kid got a small tractor. It was all advertising, and these are all done as advertising items.
Yes.
This one's from Brews Hardware in Innisfail, and was done for their 60th birthday. I'm not sure when Innisfail did, but I'm guessing it was probably around 1965, somewhere in there, is the 60th anniversary. Almost all of the spinners in my collection, based upon the phone numbers and so on, were all in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. I won't say they weren't earlier, but I'm not aware of them if they are.
Well, that's got to be somewhere in that area because Burroughs went out of business in the 70s.
Okay, you've answered.
Being an Innistalia.
Oh, very good. You got one step ahead of me. And this last one is a bit of a joke. Oh, round and round she goes. Where she stops, nobody knows. And he did it backward, or I guess he's got it right. James Williston, who owns Canada Wide Woods, he's a spinner collector, he's a wooden nickel collector, and he's a wooden nickel manufacturer. So to give out to his spinner friends, he made his own wooden nickel that's a spinner.
Would the center part of the coin be cast in, or was it a pin, or what was the pivot point for the spinner?
I think if you look, you'll see that they're all actually indented.
They're punched.
Which means that they're punched. This one is actually an addition on the wood. Sorry, the question was, is the point added or created? And if you look on the obverse side, you'll find a hole which indicates that it was punched. The next class I'm going to talk about are encased cents. Encased cents are, most of them were made in the early 1900s to the 1920s, and they were done usually to advertise some sort of an event. Just hold on, every now and then I have to rely on my notes. They first appeared in Buffalo, New York at the 1901 Pan American Exposition. They came in many different shapes and sizes, and including round horseshoes and chamber pots. I have a chamber pot here.
You just got it.
How's this one showing there?
Ooh, ah.
That was done in for a 1920 convention by the Calgary Shriners, and they put out a series of 6 or 8 different, and I have most of them. I brought 4 different ones here tonight. I'm going to try, I'll show you the reverse on it. And I think that's, all right, I need my glasses on. I'm a poor reader. That's a 1913 large cent. By the way, in early Canadian usage, they used the large pennies because the small pennies weren't in existence at that time. But it also caused another thing is many of the early Canadian encased coins were American coins. And that was 2 reasons. One, I think it was easier to make one for a small coin than the large coin. Secondly, most of the manufacturers were American, and they found it easier to get access to the American coins than the Canadian coins. That's another one. I think I better take it out of the case.
1920.
Anyway, it's just another same example of the Shriners, and again, there were various dies done to promote the 1920 convention. Compliments of the Alizar. And I got, that one's not going to be readable too well. But they're all various years and so on, and they're all promoting the Calgary 1920 convention here. And I brought 4 different ones.
Would those be sold at an event or given away?
I would suspect that they were promoted, given away. They may have been sold, but I would suggest they probably went to different shrine halls in Edmonton, Winnipeg, Regina, Saskatoon, gave it out to the members and said, come to Calgary in 1920. That's, I've not done any research on that. And as I said, this whole series are all with the Canadian large cents. And some of them are 13, some are 16, and some are 20. This one is done by a coin dealer of the day. It's good for 25 cents, and it has an Elizabeth coin, and he was a Calgary coin dealer. By the time I started collecting coins, he was long gone. So, and you have to even allow Edmonton. This was Edmonton, and they were promoting the agricultural land available in Edmonton. I believe it's 1916 or something. I don't know if the date's visible in there or not. I'll look at it. 1914, yes. And it was also done by the Al-Azhar Shrine, but it was done for Edmonton, and it was, I believe there was an exhibition in Edmonton that they were giving out at. And we have modern examples. This was done by the Edmonton Numismatic Society when they hosted the Royal Canadian Numismatic Association Convention in 2009. And it promotes the convention, and they were given out in the convention kits, and I believe they were also given out at the door. There's a dealer in Edmonton who made quite a few varieties of this, only using a quarter instead of the penny. And this last one, it's a chamber pot variety, and on the other side, it is an anomaly because the name of the company is visible, but if you look to the right, the town is obliterated. And the town, if I looked in my catalog, when I looked in my catalog under that merchant's name, is Rollo, Saskatchewan. Does anybody know what Rollo, Saskatchewan is?
I can't answer that question, because you told me.
Does anybody else know what Rollo, Saskatchewan is? Well, you're disqualified too. Marion says she knows.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Dog River.
Oh,
Corner Gas.
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. So I don't know if somebody did, but the penny they put in an old penny, but not as old as what the encased collar is. The penny that they've put in is a 1940, which, of course, if they made it to represent Rollo, I don't, or Dog River, I don't know. But they put in an old penny, but originally it was a 1908 American penny that was in there. And in talking to some of the fellow collectors who know a little bit about it, it was not uncommon for coin collectors to get their hands on these and say, my gosh, there's a 1908 US penny, that's valuable. And they popped it out. The only thing is in popping it out, they destroyed the coin. Because there's ridges down the side, it's no longer round in shape because they had to pound it in to get it into the collar in the first place. I'm going to try and see if I can do a bit of research. I only picked this up on Saturday afternoon from Mr. Howard Smith, and he didn't even know what it was. But thank you, Howard. Yes, sir.
So were these ever punched with a small hole to be part of a keychain as a tourist type piece?
Not so much these,
Yeah.
but the horseshoe types, yes.
Okay, horseshoe type.
Yeah, and then there are a few other varieties. What they were did at sale, it's hard to tell. If the hole is crude, in all likelihood, you did it.
Right.
If it's smooth and done with a drill, in all likelihood, it was sold as a keychain. And some modern encased coins are made to be sold. They have a Canadian penny and they're made to be sold as keychains. And so the same with any souvenir piece. If the hole is well done, it was probably done by the manufacturer. If it's crude, it was probably done by an owner or purchaser afterwards.
Are there any stampede versions of it? Or, you know?
The answer is yes. The answer is, do I own one? I don't know, I can't remember, and I sure as the heck couldn't find it today, so. But I believe the Stampede did do a horseshoe version. Later on in my talk, I'm gonna, oops, what was that?
That's a shade.
That's the shade.
What are you trying to do, startle me?
Just don't bang the table.
Nice sketch, though.
Yeah. The overhead lights were obliterating the coins that were out there, so.
The column that you put in.
Yeah.
ingenious as well.
Okay. The next item I'm going to talk about, and I'm only going to talk fairly briefly, are Olympic medals. In 1988, the Calgary hosted the Olympic Games, and it probably had the most numismatic issues of any event that ever was in Calgary. Like, I'm talking tens of thousands of every issue were handed out. I brought 3 different types to show you. The types of medals that were issued, I call them medals, they're probably more medallions, are in 2 types. One is the award medals, which are to the athletes, and then the presentation medals, which are to volunteers, politicians, and other near to goods like athletes and the media and so on. One of the most common ones is the small medal. It has the Olympic symbols on it, and on the other side it has opening ceremonies. It was given out to all of the participants at the opening ceremonies up at McMahon Stadium. And about 10 years ago, a box of over 400 of them were found out at Curry Barracks that were supposed to be handed out to the cadets and never were. And so there were more medals on the market than there was any demand. So they were relatively common now. Second piece, again, has the more or less the same design, but it's a much larger item. And if you look at it this way, it looks sort of like stylized mountains. I call them glorified steps. And this is the medal that was given to all volunteers. I was fortunate enough, I'm the only member of the Calgary Numismatic Society to receive an Olympic volunteer medal, and I got it for the very hazardous and strenuous sport of stamp collecting. Every Olympics is required to put on a stamp exhibition and a coin exhibition, and the Olympic Committee utilized the Nickel Art Museum to show off the Olympic collection from a gentleman by the name of Varga from Ottawa, but they approached us in the stamp club and had us put on the stamp exhibition. And in the eyes of the Olympic Committee, we were ushers, and that's all we were. We showed people to their seats, walked through, but we did get to hobnob with royalty. Every day we saw at least one royalty person come in there to see his own exhibit and to see what the reaction was. And the last medal that I brought is what it's called the Participants Medal. Again, very similar reverse, and the obverse has the Citus Altus Fortis torch example. There were approximately 4 to 5 times as many of these medals issued as the volunteer medal. However, because of the connotation of being presented to athletes, this is worth roughly 4 to 5 times as much as the volunteer medal. And it was presented to all athletes and media. Now, in addition to these, there were various medals given out to various dignitaries. Ralph Klein handed out a pile, and the sponsors got it, and so on and so forth. I'm still missing 2. One, I can't remember which one. One is were given to the Pigeon Club, for their exhibit during the opening ceremonies, and I haven't been able to track one of those down. And I am fortunate enough to have acquired, and I'm going to see how this works. Does that show it all?
Yes?
Ooh.
Okay. This is a sample of the official gold medal presented.
Just set it on the box, yeah, that's good.
Well, I'm afraid it's going to
No, but
crush
hold it,
Yeah.
but just,
Yeah, and that was the official sample issued by Jostens to let them know what the medal was going to look like. And looking in front of me is a little 5-letter word that just breaks my heart. It says sample. Right across the top. The chance of me getting one of these without that word sample is exactly nil, because they're much sought after and coveted by the recipients. I was fortunate enough when I went to Vancouver in 2010, we actually got to hold and wear silver, gold, and copper medals, but we couldn't get them out of sight of the RCMP guards standing beside.
But wouldn't the word sample make it like one of one?
It may be, but it doesn't make it the one. It doesn't, it's not a presented medal. If this would have been presented and we knew who was presented to, the value there would, I'm guessing, between $5,000 and $10,000.
Okay.
Gold alone is probably, at current values, would be $2,000 to $3,000 now. But if you knew who it was, and if you, like for instance, if you got one of the figure skaters and you knew who it was, I'm guessing $5,000 to $10,000 easily for a presented medal. This is still cost me a couple of dollars, but nowhere in that range.
So is the value based on the gold content or on the pedigree that was given to an athlete?
I would say it would be the uniqueness. I would think a silver medal is worth substantially less than the golds, and the bronze would be worth substantially less than the silver. But I would still think that the bronze medal, once you knew who it was issued to, what sport, and so on, even for a bronze medal, I'm still thinking $2,000 to $3,000 for the bronze medal. You don't see them very often come up. Yes, ma'am. Yes, Jackie.
Oh, did I interrupt you?
Well, you were waving at me, so
Oh, no, were they engraved with the name of the recipient?
Not that I'm aware of. Yeah. At least if they were, the only place would be around the rim, and I can't see what it's like.
That's
But
right, there wouldn't be a place.
the medal itself does not allow for any engraving room.
But, yeah.
Yeah. So, are we running out of time?
Al, approximately how much are those spinners worth?
Spinners? Spinners are anywhere from 15 to 20. Depends whether or not I've seen one before and whether or not we're aware of it. But on the average, 15 to 20 bucks. Yeah, and I'm running out of time? Okay. As you can see, I'm not anywhere near finished. But other items that I was going to talk about, Masonic pennies. Every Mason's Lodge issued a penny, have the initials put in, they have to be in a straight line, and the theory was, if you have your Masonic penny, you'll never go broke. Love tokens, my wife collects them, although I'm the one that spends all the money, and I've got a few examples afterwards you can talk to me about. Trade dollars, I no longer collect. Centennial pieces, I'm just going to show this one quickly. This is one of a set of 3 done for Yellowknife. And they made 3 bronze, gold-filled, and gold. I collect Coin Club medals, the RCNA medals, and various medals and medallions. I talked to somebody about the horseshoe. This was the attempt that the Calgary Stampede did this last year to do a horseshoe, and it's nothing more than a keychain.
It's a zipper pull.
It's a zipper pull, and that was their attempt. And the last item I collect, I was going to talk about, are shopping cart tokens. I picked that one up last night at the, So,
Superstore.
I have a lot of other items, but obviously I talk too much. And if you have any questions, please see me after the meeting here. Do we have time for a couple of questions?
Yeah, and then we're